Right, not too long ago I made a clickbait build just because clickbait or backfire. With a little bit of messing around and just generally farming, I've come up with a new way to basically keep the same damage, but you're less reliant on stacks, you have more immediate stacking gains, although we are adding another stacking mechanic to it, which is bizarre. So we've gone from now stacking 200% strikers and 200 backfire. We're now stacking 25 obliterate, 100 strikers and 200 backfire. This in turn does mean that the overall multipliers that you will gain does put you on pretty much an equal playing field to a certain point. At maximum stacks, the previous video I did with the previous build will hit a hell of a lot more. However, your starting gains are pretty much non-existent, whereas with this setup your starting gains are actually worthwhile and do have an effect, and it's a lot easier to actually start dealing damage earlier on in the build. So like I said, I've changed a few things. Now the build that I'm actually showing here in the footage, and the full build will be at the end of the video, it's not maxed out yet, like nowhere near. It's actually quite pitiful. And yes, I do have golden bullet on because I've been trying to utilize backfire as like my main golden bullet build, just because the overall effect of backfire with golden bullet probably does mean it's the highest DPS weapon going. The problem is it does try to kill you, and without going into like some seriously Hasbro-esque builds, it will kill you. So utilizing golden bullet with backfire, from what I have seen so far, does tend to be the highest DPS option. The issue I then had was, outside of golden bullet, it really wasn't useful, good. So the build after making the video kind of promptly got recycled. And now I've made this, and it now has a permanent slot on character 1, which is my solo character, for those that don't know. So if I end up putting a build on my character 1, it means I'm serious about it. I plan on maxing it out and giving it a jolly good go. And this is kind of my go-to Hasbro, I want to have a little bit of fun, do DPS style-ish build. Now there are some changes. We have gained a grand total of like 3% critical hit damage, although we've lost like 145% multiplier, but we have also gained 25% total weapon damage. So it's a tomato thing. The difference with this is, like I said, this is usable outside of golden bullet, and it is also just quite nice. We've taken a little bit of a hit to our overall Hasbro. We're now at 70%, whereas the previous one was 80%. It's still worthwhile enough to a point of where if you are hit with a status effect, you'll get like one tick out of it, and it's perfectly fine. We've also added a little bit of survivability in. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but I am getting some armor regen on the go, and this is just incorporating a backpack that I very rarely see used anymore at all. So just to add some spreadsheets into the mix, this is the build I'm showing now, backfire new versus backfire old. As you can see, at total stacks, at maximum everything, 200 strikers, 200 backfire, blah, we are dropping about 30% in total DPS, which does sound like a lot. However, you might recall, if you watched that video, that I basically was always unable to hit max stacks anyway. So, if we now just incorporate everything at 100 stacks, which is the new strikers max, because we're not using chest or backpack, as well as only 100 stacks with backfire, we do more during the initial build up. It's only really once strikers is at max stacks and you've got about 100 stacks on backfire will the previous build actually start to outperform my new version. However, during the build up to these 100 stacks, due to the fact that we're using obliterate now, it can't really compete. And adding in a lovely backpack also means that we are now able to, I mean, it's good enough healing to a point of it helps. It's never going to be god tier healing just because it's been nerfed, but I quite like this build because I don't really use backfire too much. Strikers is very powerful, and I don't really get to use Devil's Due all too often, if at all ever. So it is quite nice having a niche build that is just quite fun to run around and play. It also helps being mostly immune to pretty much all forms of status. Yeah, I'm just doing some random DPS checking here just so you can sort of see the amount of damage we do without Golden Bullet. Just because I'm aware Golden Bullet is going to skew things. I do apologise for that, but while making videos, Doddy's got a farm. So here you can see the amount of damage that we do when stacking up. It starts out at about 240k, but it does build up to over 1 million pretty damn quick on headshots. And on body shots we hit the high 900ks with maximum stacks. So that's pretty handy. Again though, do take into consideration that this build is nowhere near maxed at all, which you will see in a minute. Because I need to add one hell of a caveat. If you do decide to make this build, you need to prioritize red targets first. If you go straight in with no stacks and like, oh yeah, there's an elite there, I'm going to shoot him, you will die. Reds first. But yes. Striker's Mask, as you can see, I've got Hasbro and Bleed Resistance mod. Obviously, backfire, maxed out. This is like the mask that's maxed out. My backpack is maxed out, crit damage, and then Hasbro. The chest has crit chance. I'm still toying. As you can see, my gloves are not maxed out, minus the Hasbro. It's also the same for the knees, maxed Hasbro, but the weapon damage is lacking. And then holster. And then we've got my... I don't want to talk about it, alright? I've run out of resources. I've been doing too much farming and build making. I blame Hutchler. He bullies me and gets me to test out random silly builds. Anyway, I am still toying on whether to swap the crit damage on the backpack to crit chance, which effectively is more DPS and help for perfect clutch. But in the meantime, have fun, good luck, don't die. It's bad for the health.